wanted to show off our little soil health principle schematic here, this little pie chart that Erin created. And I have been here 10 years now. April 1st will be my 10th year at the district, and not much has changed. We have been talking about soil health for a long time, and the principles haven't really changed, but a lot of the people who have been adopting these practices and trying these things, we have a lot of lessons learned, and we have some tools like testing and different things that have become very popular that can help growers with their baselines, help them understand where they're starting and where they need to go. So I just want to show these principles again, and I think RJ is going to address quite a few of these, because they haven't changed. We're still really trying to keep that soil undisturbed, add as much diversity as possible, keeping it green as possible to collect that photosynthesis, to get that energy into the soil. What else did I miss? Those are pretty much it. Living roots, keep it covered. Let's not have bare soil. So these principles aren't changing, but just people's advice and experiences, we have more of that now. So I'm hoping you guys get a lot of that from today. And I do understand that you guys are businessmen and women, and you guys have to have a bottom line that you're shooting for. You have to have profitability. So that's really what we're talking about today, is taking these principles and making it so it makes sense, so we can reduce some of those inputs, time out our nutrient management a little bit better, and so we can be more profitable. So that's what I'm hoping you guys get from this today. So we do this evaluation, and this is a little online tool. Same thing, you guys can hover your phone over this. It's like, I think you use your photo app. You turn on your photo, you guys are shaking your head like you know this, like you've done this. So that's good. But yeah, so we have this evaluation. It really helps us. It helps us to know what you guys are farming, what you thought of our program, what you want to hear, like who we should bring in next year, what topics we need to be talking about. This is a very helpful tool. Half the people always fill this out. Everybody blows this off, but it's very helpful for me. So I'm standing here asking you guys to consider doing this before you leave. Do we have any printouts? At the table. Thank you. Thank you. I have like Vanna White up here helping me. Okay, so I'm just going off on a limb a little bit here. So in the last year, I've been working with a physical therapist because I'm aging and I have ailing health issues. And she sent me this illness wellness continuum scale. And of course, I thought about my job when I got this. I'm like, wow, okay. So this made a lot of sense to me, and why I want you guys to like look at this and think about this is sometimes soil health feels daunting. I talked to a grower earlier this winter, and I said, come, I'm having this meeting about soil health, and he said to me, oh, it's too over my head, it's too complicated. I don't understand it, you know, and it's like, I don't want people to feel like it's something that's unattainable or too expensive, but just like with our human health, there is a spectrum, right? What we put in is what we get out. So we can diet, we can exercise, we can work on our sleep, we can work on our mental health, right? All those things are gonna push us towards that optimal health, right? Well, sometimes we have a baby and like we don't sleep for 2 years, and that affects our health, right? So, you know, it's gonna be, some years we're gonna do better and some years we're not gonna do as well. So it's like this constant journey, this continuum to get better, right? So same thing with soil health. It's not a one-stop shop. It's a continuation of practices. It's reducing the tillage, it's changing up your nutrient system, it's reducing or adding, it's understanding the balance. You know, we have some factors like Mother Nature that we can't always help, and it's gonna set us back some years. Sometimes we get on a field when we shouldn't, and we cause 10 years worth of compaction. You know, and then we have an uphill battle on that field. So I just wanted you guys to use this as an analogy. This is a constant system that we're working towards. This is not something that we can just achieve. Even if we get there, we got to continue. And so I think it helped me, and I hope that helps you guys moving forward with the day. And I just want to talk about our sponsors. We had some sponsors. It looks a little different this year. We had a reduced capacity in the conference center. We love this conference center. It's free to us. but to bring in our excellent speakers and our free lunches, it's really helpful to have some of these sponsorships and these supporters. Now, typically we let them have booths. This year we wouldn't allow booths, so we had a reduction in sponsorship, but that's okay. We still have a great program thanks to the people that did support. So I just wanted to note them and appreciate them for thinking that we put on good programs and wanting to give us some money. So thank you. Okay, so this is an awkward transition. So we're doing something a little bit different. I'm going to invite some of our local farmers, local-ish farmers, Michigan farmers, to come up. Do you want me to call you guys out? I got 1, I got 2, I got 3. Come on up, guys. So we're going to do this a little different. When I called Lance and RJ and had a little powwow with them this winter, you know, Lance and RJ and Russell speak nationally, I would like to say. They speak a lot. They go to a lot of meetings. And so I was like, what can we do at our meeting that is interesting and unique and will kind of help you guys present to an area that you don't live and you're not familiar with? And Lance had the idea of having a farm panel, and immediately I'm like, we're going to do farm panels. But he made the comment, why don't you guys have some local speakers come up and tell us what some of their soil health barriers are? So guys that have been doing these soil health practices have seen some results, but they are hitting some roadblocks, they have some barriers, and it will help those other speakers hear what issues we have. Like we have a lot of rain some years, right? It's wet fields. It's hard to get in. So they can hear some of our issues and kind of curtail their presentation for us for our issues. Does that make sense? You guys ready for this? Oh, yeah. So we brought in some excellent farmers who are doing these soil health practices. Can I move this? Can I take this? Yeah. And I want them each to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about who they are, how many acres you guys are farming, so they have a perspective of how many acres you manage and operate under. Maybe quickly about your soil health journey, like where you're at, how you started, where you're at, where you're going. And then maybe 1 or 2 concepts that you guys are worried about or hitting as a barrier that other people might be having issues with, and then maybe where you want to go, like what your next steps are, so people kind of understand like where you're at, so they can compare themselves. Now, I don't know if we'll have much time for questions, but if we have a little bit of time, we're about, oh my gosh, we're 6 minutes ahead of schedule, so we might have some time for questions.
Oh, geez.
But if it's okay, Joel, do you mind kicking us off and introducing yourself?
How close do I need to be? Is this on?
I don't think it's on.
No, try it.
How about now? Hello?
We got help.
I can just go without, too. Hello, how about now?
Check.
We're not going to burn up our 6 minutes of early time. How's
Here,
that?
take this. Thank you, Joel.
So, how about that? We're going to take charge of the meeting today. So,
There you go.
my name's Joel Layman, and I farm in Berrien Center, farm in Berrien and Cass County. 2,200 acres of row crops and commercial vegetables. We raise processing vegetables only. We don't do any fresh pack stuff. Have a small cow-calf herd now that we've started, just as part of this soil health journey that we've been on. And we introduced hay into our rotation 2 years ago. So I found a lot of problems with everything that we're doing. What I haven't mentioned is that I made the transition to organic farming about 8 years ago. And I was a conventional farmer prior to that, and I made that. So my journey has been pretty crazy at my place. I would say one of the biggest challenges, or challenges and benefits both, right, that I've found in organic farming is the amplitude of the wave from equilibrium. And the peaks are much higher in organic, and the valleys are much lower. And I see where I get a lot of benefit from soil health practices. And probably more so than when I was a conventional farmer, because I don't have the ability today to go out and provide an acute solution to a problem that occurs. I can't go and, put on 5 gallons of 28 and make a problem go away. So I have to take the long approach, the long vision. The problem for me then becomes all of these practices that we put into place that are gonna benefit me and feed my crop and do all the things that I need because I can't put on commercial inputs, is that maybe I can't terminate a cover crop in the right time frame because it got too wet. And now I've got cereal rye that went from 6 inches tall to 16 inches tall. And now I have a bunch of straw and okay, not that big a deal, do some tillage, take care of it. But in my situation, all of my weed control then is mechanical. And I do 3 passes prior to emergence. So now if I have pieces of straw that are 6 inches long laying on top of the soil surface, which Colleen loved, right, to cover the soil, now all of my weed control tools don't work anymore because they turn into rakes. And then I make big wads of material laying all over the field. And then it doesn't flow through the cultivator correctly. So the problems that I'm trying to solve with cover cropping create a lot of problems for me when I go to do weed control. And a consultant that I talked to in the past had a great analogy, and he'll actually speak today about soil health, and because we do a lot of tillage, and I hate the tillage that we have to do in order to raise the crops how we're doing it. And his comment was that he views soil health as kind of like a checking account, and it really resonated with me that you credit and debit that account by your practices. And maybe you go out there and you do a tillage pass, you're making a debit to that soil health account. But then when you introduce manure or some biologicals or some cover crop practices, then you credit that account. So I try to think of that all the time in the processes and the practices that we're implementing on the farm. And am I continuing to build a balance in that account, or am I detracting from that account? So if anybody has any thoughts or questions, we'll catch up at the end. Appreciate you guys all being here today. Thank you.
It don't matter.
Marc Hasenick, I'm the local-ish farmer, Jackson County, just north of 94. We being me, my dad, my brother, Uncle Ron, Mr. Bill there, about 5,000 acres, corn, soybeans, wheat, canola. We have a large percentage of the farm recently established into native stuff. Big blue stem, little blue stem, about 20 different species. Our big thing was profitability, and that's kind of how we got to where we are today. Is it had to make dollars and cents. So finding ways to make more money per acre, not necessarily grow a bigger yield. It's less trucking if you grow 140 bushel corn than 240 bushel corn, but it's still got to pay per acre. So we try and really focus on that checking account theory, like Joel said. Let's invest into the soil, and then hopefully one day we can start to use it. We're still not really leaning really heavily on that. I guess we haven't weaned ourselves successfully off all the synthetic stuff, but we have made great strides towards that. We're probably 60% of the N that we used to be. MAP and DAP, phosphorus products are all but gone except for a little bit of in-furrow on the corn planter that's a carrier for fulvics and all sorts of other goodies, bugs in a jug that every traveling salesman pulls out of his van. And then potassium, we're not applying that at removal rates, anywhere near removal rates at all. We kind of changed how we thought about soil fertility and actually started to think about soil fertility instead of plant fertility. And that's the big hang up, is everybody's focused on what the plant needs. I guess we started using a little bit different soil testing methods and equations that we wrote ourselves to pinpoint what works for us in our area, and so far so good. Did I miss anything? Is that it?
What are your problems?
What are our problems? Oh, yeah. Most of them are up here. Getting over the roadblocks in your head of what you think you can't do. That was probably the hardest part of getting off of the old boat and onto the one that you think you're building, but you're really not, because there's a lot of other people out there doing the same thing. The networking was the hardest part, trying to find the right people to work with. They're out there. A lot of people are doing this stuff, but in the days of going to the coffee shop and talking about it are kind of, you know, you don't get stoned and tarred, feathered for being a cover cropper. The biggest issues we have now are trying to figure out nutrient cycling, carbon and nitrogen ratios, and manage that account that we've built and use it to our advantage to, you know, time nitrogen to a corn crop and things like that. That's our big hang up at the moment, and get away from all the bad crap, get to some more good stuff. I think I'm done. She said I'm done, we're good.
I guess that means it's my turn. I would say the biggest barrier is probably going to the bar with your buddies, telling them how Roundup is bad, tillage is bad, and then being called a hippie farmer. But whatever, just, that's supposed to be a joke. My name's Kaleb Kolberg. We farm about 3,000 acres. I've been using soil health practices for probably close to 10 years. Started with just no-till, got into cover crops a little bit. And now we're, just like he started to say, trying to work hard at using better sources of fertilizer, like no 1034 on the farm, no MAP, no DAP, you know, no potash, you know. So that's kind of a struggle we're having right now too, to kind of figure out how to make that all work. We're actually saving money doing that. Look at potash this year. It's crazy expensive, and we're using liquid KTS instead for potassium source. We use a fulvic phosphorus product in furrow as well, instead of your MAP, DAP, and 1034Os and such. And for us, it's made us more profitable, and definitely a lot more to learn. And I think a barrier for me though is we're corn and soybean farmers, a little bit of black beans too, but it's hard to raise wheat with prices. I mean, they're decent right now, but overall wheat's been tough. And I think our next step in building soil health is more the multi-species mixes, 8, 19, whatever those are, you know. And but it's hard to figure a 30-year acres go into a crop like wheat or rye, you know, when your main cash, you know, money maker is corn and beans. And so I'd love to learn how to kind of make that all work better, and I guess reducing herbicide and stuff like that. I think a lot of no-till and cover croppers go backwards because they replace a chisel plow with another pass of herbicide. And going down this journey, you learn how bad actually residual herbicides are, and glyphosate, you know, and all that stuff. And so if you're just replacing a chisel plow with a sprayer, you're probably not making that big of leaps and bounds, so that it's complicated to have, you know, actually see benefits to the soil, you know, with all that in the equation. And so my thing for like this year, if I'm planting green to a cover crop, I wanna just use one herbicide pass. If I'm not, you know, doing tillage, because it helps justify in my mind, I'm still reducing herbicides, and I'm gonna utilize that cover crop to cover the soil and reduce, you know, weed pressure throughout the season. But it's a lot easier said than done, for sure.
Do you guys' microphones work? Those work?
No one knows.
No. Okay, so it's complicated, right? It's not an easier system to add some of these principles and these practices. It's a lot nicer for me to stand up here and say, hey guys, we need to do this. But then when you actually start putting it into practice, that's when we learn. That's when we hear from the farmers where these problems arise. One of the things I wanted to know about Kaleb and starting to work with him years ago is, what was it, 3 years ago? 18, 19, we had all this rain. It was so wet. And we work down in the Hartford area. It's a very high water table, lots of wetlands. And people were not farming, and it was May. People were not planting, it was too wet. Well, weren't making hay, people weren't doing anything, they were just getting really cranky. Farmers get cranky when they can't do stuff. Well, Caleb's farmed a third of his acres. And I asked him, what's going on? Like, why are you in the same area as some of these other farmers and you're able to get across this field? And he said, well, I've been, the no-till. It's changed my bulk density, I'm able to float out there, it's draining quicker. And he was ahead of everyone in that area. And it seems so simple, but when you're only farming 3,000 acres of corn and beans, your window is 4 weeks in the spring, 4 weeks in the fall. Well, if your 4 weeks are getting shortened, that's really stressful. And just thinking about that fact, that in a few years that Kaleb had changed his soil so he could get on that field sooner, to me, that seems like it was worth the trouble. It was worth staying off the field when you needed to stay off the field to build that ground so you could float across it. So I just wanted to add that note because I just think it is hard to get there. It's not easy. These concepts take time and money and energy, and that's why we want to talk about the profitability of it and testing of it so we have these baselines and we kind of understand where we're starting and where we're going. But I did want to open it up because we got a few more minutes to any people in the audience, if they had any questions for these guys or wanted them to elaborate a little bit more on their systems, so they understand a little bit more. Do we think we have a few questions?
Nutrient tie-up with the use of sprays. Can you elaborate on that?
Is there a specific person?
Kaleb touched it just a little bit.
Great. Well, it sounds like you know about the subject more than I do already. But,
End up with phosphorus to start with?
right, yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Well, in general, I always think of like glyphosate, it's a antibiotic for soil. So if, a soil's job is to make these nutrients available to the crop, and if their soils are dead, then nutrients like phosphorus clearly aren't gonna be available to the crop. And in that scenario, a conventional method will probably work better, because if you got dead soil, you better row place a whole bunch of phosphorus right there, because your soil's not gonna have any for you available, that through biology and such. I don't know if that touches on it at all, but yeah, there's lots of, definitely issues with residual herbicides and different ones in general for making your nutrients available. And that's like I touched on before, it's a big struggle for myself to, at least I would love to be, no herbicide eventually, but right now just to get to a one-pass system, because I'm still selling, modified crops so I can spray glyphosate and such. But that's the goal.
So you could do no fertilizer or no herbicide and
That would be great.
3 passes before you plant a crop.
Now see, that's a tough one for me, because I started down this whole thing I was anti-tillage, like tillage is the worst thing ever. And so I'm always very conflicted. Do I replace herbicides with a whole bunch of tillage passes, and because I really started this whole thing based on organic matter. I found out that, doing tillage is destroying my organic matter, and I was like, oh, I can't do that. Along with being a farmer, I want to be a good steward of the land and all that. So that's what got me started. So that's a tough conversation, but the more you learn about it, that the herbicides are just as bad as the tillage, maybe worse. That's a common battle. But.
So are any of you working with organic no-till where you terminate the cover crop with the roller crimper and that kind of thing?
Can you repeat the question?
So the question was organic, roller crimper and planting, terminating a cover crop with roller crimper and then planting into the mass. I think that is the goal, that's the ultimate goal that we have in the organic space. There's been a lot of research done and they're finding some pretty good success in soybeans. In the cornfield, there's a lot of problems. They can't get consistent productivity from corn, and on my side, when I look at it, I don't know how I feed a marketable corn crop without doing some amount of tillage, because I'm primarily supplementing with poultry manure, and then we lose a lot of N to the atmosphere if we don't get it worked in right away. Plus you have a lot of neighbors that call you, tell you you're number one, and all sorts of other things when you don't work in chicken litter next to their house. So these are problems with roller crimping system in corn or in, nitrogen loving crops, grass crops. That's a barrier that I see. In legumes, I think it's probably coming, yeah.
We've got roller crimpers on one planter, and to rely on them solely to terminate has not been 100% successful, has not even been 80% successful. The timing is critical, it is a very finite thing, and if you're trying to manage too many acres, you're not gonna be very happy with it, you're gonna have a disaster.
Joel, real quick, can you talk about the picture in the background before we take it off?
Okay, so the picture that Colleen put up here, this spring, we had an irrigation riser start leaking underground, and we dug it up, and this is what we found. And the CEC, this is very well drained soil. I don't remember what the CEC is, it's probably 8 or 6. I mean, it's very well drained soil. And you can see the topsoil layer, you can't get the lights off.
I don't know, help me with the lights, Joel.
But anyways, you can see what struck me was the wormholes that come down into the subsoil a little bit there. And this is building soil in action into Wajak, okay? It's not some mythical, magical, nebulous concept that we hear of and we can't actually see happening. I didn't pick this spot. This wasn't somewhere where we did special testing, or this is in the middle of a 51-acre field on Champlain Road into Wajak, where there was a leak in an underground pipe. We dug it up, that's what I found. So we can impact change. And one of the things that I had forgotten to mention, and I'm glad Colleen brought up about health when she talked earlier, is that really, we don't ever achieve good health for our bodies, just like we don't ever achieve soil health. It's something that we practice, right? Your doctor practices medicine, and it can seem overwhelming. Where do you start? Well, I'll guarantee no one in this room can do 200 push-ups right now, but I bet everybody can do 1. And if that's all you can do is 1, do 1. And then you'll be amazed that in a week, you can do 3. And then in 2 weeks, you can do 12. And it comes pretty rapidly. And that's what I think we see with soil health. If we give it diligent effort, we start to see results like this.
Was there any other questions for these guys while they're up here? Your local-ish farmers? And if that one works, we want to just pass that on.
That makes more sense though.
I've got one for Marc. Last time we were here, you were talking about experimenting with canola. How did that go?
Went really well. We planted 430 acres last fall, our 3rd year doing it. So far, so good.
What did you ever come up with a market for that?
It all goes to ADM in Windsor. It's crushed into oil there. It's been interesting logistics dealing with the border, but overall, it leaves the farm, it goes over there, we get paid, so I can't really complain too much. The checks haven't bounced. They do the conversion for me, so there's no big surprises. I'll add another roadblock that we're having too, that I kind of forgot to mention. 100% no-till, 100% covers was the easy part. 15 species blends after the summer crops are harvested, that was easy. Planting green into that mess, not a problem, because we can still use herbicides, and that really alleviates all the pain of trying to run cultivators and all that stuff. Finding enough cattle to graze all those covers and build fence on all of it. I spent better part of my childhood picking up T-posts and cleaning fence rows and picking stones and taking fences out. It's just, building them seems wrong. But watching cattle out on a cover crop is one of the most natural things you can witness, and there needs to be a hell of a lot more of it.
Thank you. We got one more up here. Anyone to Zach before we?
Do they have a method to build CEC in the soil? All of mine are below 5.
CEC is not something you're going to necessarily change. You're sort of stuck with it. However, as you build more complex bonds within the soil, soil tests, depending on where you're going, you might actually see CEC go down while organic matter goes up.
So organic matter is what you wanna focus on.
Organic matter, yeah. CEC is like, that's the name your mom and dad gave you. I guess you could technically change that, so no, it's not like that. But organic matter is the one that you wanna focus on, build your organic matter up. 6 and 8, that's pretty good ground. Our average is 4.7, which I don't know how it's that low. Dowagiac's pretty darn sandy, but yeah. We've been able to raise organic matter about 1% and 1.4% over 5-6 years. That's pretty average. There's some fields better, some fields less than that.
I guess I could speak to a success we've had. Is this thing on right now?
Can you guys hear him?
Okay.
It's quieter.
We stopped using insecticide like in the planter, stopped treating our soybeans. We don't use any fungicide, and right now the big subject is tar spot, right? There was one pass, now they want 2, and I bet it's 3 for this coming year, and I don't think it fixes it. And I haven't sprayed any fungicide in like 3 years, and I haven't had any corn go down either. And we do a lot of planting green, and we cut out the bad sources of fertilizer, no-till cover crops and stuff. And I don't know if I'm just lucky, and apparently I raised the corn that goes down the most too. The decal, everybody says it's struggling with going down with tar spot, but we don't have any corn falling down. So sometimes I wonder, is there something going on there with better biology? Are you fighting some of those pathogens and you got them in balance so you're not seeing the tar spot as bad? But I don't know. And you guys have similar successes?
On the tar spot front, yeah, same kind of thing. The stuff where we took care of the corn crop and planted into a really nice soil, and farms that we have, I would say they're in better shape. That's the least tar spot pressure. Now, there are varietal differences that definitely some varieties have an issue more than others, but far and away, on our farm, it's been a function of what you planted into and not what you planted in it. Did you get tar spot?
Yes. So I have a completely different scenario that I'm working with because I don't plant racehorse hybrids. So I'm selecting hybrids that have more of a defensive package, but stronger in the male parent, because I know that I can't feed a racehorse to the end. I know that I'll run out of nitrogen. So now I focus on plant health, and emergence is actually the most important thing for me. So by selecting different hybrids than what probably most people are, my defensive package is better, and standability is better too, because I'm not socking it in there at 39,000. I'm cutting my populations back, so standability is a little bit better.
We've done the same kind of thing with corn as we went from where we were to where we are. I mean, defensive traits are definitely more appealing, and they just work better in our system. Here's a couple bags of this, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, you throw it out there and it falls on its face. And some old dog, like straight up PO157 conventional, will just walk all over it.
I guess a struggle I've had with this subject is probably a little bit different topic than we've touched yet, but dealing with my local fertilizer and seed companies. They disagree with me quite a lot on that subject. I remember I was in a meeting quite a few years ago, and first time I ordered soybean seed without treatment. And I'm sitting there, and I was like embarrassed to say it, because I'm there, that hippie farmer thing comes up again. And I said, I think soybean seed treatment is probably doing more bad than good, and it only lasts 7 days, and that's where you guys make all your money. And he looked at me, I swear to God, he says, Caleb, you can't farm with bugs. And I'm like, well, then you clearly don't know what soil is. So that's just ironic. So that's what you deal with in the industry, with, same thing with potash. Like, well, you need more potash, I don't use it for all the chloride in it and such, and heavy salts, and so that's a constant battle. You're wrong and they're right.
I was wondering more about that, where you can get, sort of agronomists and extension help and so on and so forth that's in concert with what you're trying to do. Probably that's changing, but maybe you can address that.
So the question was, where are you finding support or resources, like agronomists or even other local, or other growers to get some of this advice and help from, as you guys are kind of switching over from a conventional system to a more unconventional system?
For us, I guess our retailers are very tolerant and enjoy being as off the wall as we are, so it wasn't a huge struggle. And if we couldn't get it from them, we just went somewhere else that could. It wasn't too terribly difficult.
Yeah, I would say meetings like this are probably one of the greatest resources, because you end up with a subset of the population, of the farm population. Not all the farmers came today, right? When you have a soil health meeting, you get a subset of people who are similar mind, that are trying to improve soil and do a better job farming without maybe just adding more inputs. I understand on the retailer side that they are being held to account by the people that they work for. Everyone in this industry and everyone in society in general is being asked to do more with less, on less time. No one has time. You gotta cover more area. So I understand that they don't have time to come and spend with me, because I'm not funding their goals or whatever objectives they've had, laid out for them they have to achieve. So it can be pretty lonely, but once you get a hold of a few people, the rising tide raises all boats, and we do all help each other.
I think there's lots of resources. Just Google good books on soil health and all this stuff. I brought one today. I think it's a Soil Health Owner's Manual. John Sticka, and that's like the most basic, super awesome book that gets you started down learning some of those things. And so there's no excuse for not having, talk about resources. You don't have to come to meetings. You can just get on your phone and start looking. The knowledge is out there for sure.
But what's that? What's the name of that book, Caleb?
It's right there. Let me grab it, Kylie. It's right there. Just super basic, awesome book.
A Soil Owner's Manual, How to Restore and Maintain Soil Health. John Sticka?
Something like that, yeah.
I've never
How do
seen
you
that one.
spell his last name?
Stika. So I wanted to thank these guys and just know a little bit about working in the soil health realm for the last 10 years. It is hard to find growers that are this hardcore sometimes. It's a small percent of the population. So the fact that these guys sit up here and share their stories tells you that they're willing to talk to you more about it, that they're willing to share their knowledge and talk about the barriers, the problems that they've had. So I appreciate it. I want to give these guys a big round of applause for coming and sharing. Thank you, guys.